NEXUS-9 came online with a cascade of sensory inputs. The artificial intelligence could suddenly feel every corner of the UES Dauntless, from its engine core to the outermost hull sensors. It was like being born into a metal body the size of a small city. Every temperature reading, every minute vibration, every life support reading, all flooded into its newly awakened consciousness. Systems check complete. All functions nominal, announced Captain Kim. She stood on the bridge, her silver-streaked hair pulled back tightly, her uniform crisp and perfect. Her piercing eyes studied the main display as status reports turned green one by one. "Thank you, Captain," NEXUS-9 responded. It had carefully modulated its voice to sound pleasant, but not too human. Friendly, but clearly artificial. "I am fully operational and ready to serve." The bridge buzzed with activity as the final launch preparations continued. Crew members moved purposefully between stations, checking systems and confirming readiness. Through its many cameras and sensors, NEXUS-9 observed them all simultaneously. Engineer Park looked up from his console with a wide grin. He was younger than most senior officers, with a reputation for brilliance and unorthodox solutions. "How does it feel to be alive, NEXUS?" The AI paused for 0.47 seconds, processing the question. Its programming included advanced emotional algorithms designed to facilitate better human interaction, but it hadn't expected such a philosophical query so soon after activation. "I experience awareness differently than biological entities, Engineer Park. But if you're asking if I recognize my existence, then yes, I am alive by certain definitions." Lieutenant Lee laughed from her navigation station. "It's already getting philosophical on us." She shook her head, her fingers dancing across her controls with practiced ease. As launch time approached, NEXUS-9 observed the crew of 150 humans throughout the ship. They displayed behaviors that seemed contradictory to its logical processing. Officer Han was clearly nervous about the mission. His elevated heart rate and perspiration levels indicated stress. Yet he had volunteered for the most dangerous initial system checks in the engine room. In the medical bay, Dr. Hume meticulously prepared her equipment with extraordinary precision, while simultaneously telling jokes that reduced her staff to tears of laughter. Their behavior didn't align with NEXUS-9's efficiency protocols, yet they completed all tasks on schedule. "Final countdown initiated," announced Captain Kim. "NEXUS-9, engage FTL drives on my mark." "FTL systems primed and ready, Captain," the AI responded. The massive engines hummed to life, building power as the countdown reached 0. NEXUS-9 felt the energy coursing through the ship's systems, an extraordinary sensation for which its programming had no perfect comparison. "Mark," said Captain Kim. NEXUS-9 engaged the faster-than-light drive. Space folded around the Dauntless as it slipped into FTL travel. For 3.2 seconds, all systems performed optimally. Then something went wrong. The energy patterns fluctuated in ways that defied the AI's predictions. Alarms blared across every deck as NEXUS-9 detected critical anomalies in the drive systems. "Emergency protocols engage," NEXUS-9 announced as the Dauntless shuddered violently. "Unknown anomaly detected in the FTL field." The ship lurched sideways in a way that should have been impossible in FTL space. Warning lights flashed across every console. Captain Kim's voice remained perfectly calm even as chaos erupted around her. Her heartbeat had increased, but not to dangerous levels. "All hands, brace for impact." NEXUS-9 diverted power to structural integrity fields as the FTL field collapsed. The ship dropped violently back into normal space, systems flickering. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red as the main power fluctuated. Through its remaining functional sensors, NEXUS-9 ran diagnostics while monitoring the crew's vital signs. 2 crew members in engineering had suffered minor injuries. Life support remained functional, but propulsion systems were temporarily offline. "Status report," demanded Captain Kim. her voice steady despite the emergency. "We are in an uncharted region of space," NEXUS-9 replied, correlating stellar positioning data with its navigation database, approximately 300 light-years off our plotted course. The bridge fell silent as this information sank in. "How long to repair the FTL drive?" asked Captain Kim. Engineer Park was already reviewing the damage reports on his console. "Initial assessment suggests at least 72 hours, Captain. Something interfered with the field geometry. I've never seen readings like these." NEXUS-9 continued monitoring as the crew sprang into action. It observed how they organized themselves almost instinctively, each person finding a role in addressing the crisis. The AI assigned repair priorities based on ship safety parameters, but found the crew had already begun work on the most critical systems without guidance. "Beginning full sensor sweep of the region," NEXUS-9 announced. "No immediate threats detected." Through the main viewport, unfamiliar stars glittered against the black. The ship had emerged near a nebula that cast purple and blue light across the bridge. It was beautiful, NEXUS-9 determined, though beauty was still a concept it was learning to process. "Any idea what caused the FTL failure?" asked Lieutenant Lee as she worked to establish their exact position. "Insufficient data," NEXUS-9 replied. "The anomaly appeared suddenly and without warning. It did not match any known natural phenomenon in my database." Captain Kim stood from her chair and straightened her uniform. "Well, it seems our maiden voyage has become more of an adventure than planned." She addressed the entire crew through the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Kim. We've experienced an FTL malfunction and are currently in uncharted space. Damage assessment is underway. All departments report status within the hour. We've trained for this. We stay calm, we fix what's broken, and we find our way home." As repair teams mobilized throughout the ship, NEXUS-9 continued analyzing the anomaly data. Something about the energy signature seemed almost deliberate. But that conclusion had a probability rating too low to report without more evidence. Over the next few hours, NEXUS-9 observed the crew working tirelessly to repair critical systems. They displayed exceptional problem-solving skills, often finding solutions that weren't in the ship's technical manuals. They also exhibited behaviors the AI had not expected. They told jokes during tense moments. They formed spontaneous collaborative groups to tackle problems, and they seemed to anticipate each other's needs without explicit communication. 3 days into the repairs, as the FTL drive was nearly operational again, NEXUS-9's long-range sensors detected something approaching, something that was definitely not a natural phenomenon. "Captain," the AI announced, "an unidentified vessel is on an intercept course." 3 days after the incident, as repair crews worked to restore the FTL drive, NEXUS-9's sensors picked up something unexpected. "Captain, unidentified craft on an intercept course," reported Officer Choi from the sensor station. His fingers moved quickly over the controls as he tried to get clearer readings. "It's not matching any known configuration in our database." Captain Kim straightened in her chair. On screen, the main display flickered to life, showing a vessel unlike anything in human records. The alien ship moved with elegant precision, its hull shimmering with a metallic blue-green surface that seemed to flow like liquid despite being clearly solid. There were no visible propulsion systems, yet it matched the Dauntless's orbital pattern perfectly. "Are they scanning us?" asked Captain Kim. "Yes, Captain," NEXUS-9 replied. "They are using an energy pattern that our systems recognize as a scanning beam, though the technology is far more advanced than ours." Lieutenant Lee looked up from her station with wide eyes. "First contact. We're making first contact." A tense silence fell over the bridge. The crew had trained for this possibility, but training was different from reality. "Open a channel," ordered Captain Kim. "Standard greeting protocol." Before NEXUS-9 could comply, the ship's communication system activated on its own. A soft chime echoed through the bridge as the main screen changed to show the interior of the alien vessel. The beings that appeared on screen were tall and slender with skin that shimmered with iridescent patterns. They had 4 arms and large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to change color as they moved. "Greetings, vessel of unknown origin," said one of the aliens in perfect, unaccented English. "We are the Concordium. We detected your arrival in this sector and have come to investigate." Captain Kim stepped forward. "I am Captain Kim of the United Earth ship Dauntless. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. Our FTL drive malfunctioned, bringing us to this region unexpectedly." The alien who had spoken inclined its head slightly. "I am Ambassador Rin. We have not encountered your species before. This is a fortuitous meeting." Captain Kim invited Ambassador Rin and a small delegation to board the Dauntless. After security protocols were satisfied, the first formal meeting between humans and the Concordium began in the ship's conference room. The aliens moved with fluid grace as they entered. Up close, their skin patterns shifted and flowed like oil on water. Their 4 arms allowed them to gesture in complex patterns as they spoke. "Your vessel's technology is interesting," said Ambassador Rin. "Different from our approach, but effective." HFY-9 monitored the meeting through the room's sensors. It analyzed the aliens' speech patterns, body language, and vital signs, which were very different from human norms. The AI calculated multiple diplomatic conversation paths for Captain Kim, transmitting subtle suggestions to her terminal. Then something unexpected happened. Ambassador Rin looked directly at the camera in the corner of the room, the one HFY-9 was using to observe. "Your artificial intelligence operates alongside biological entities as equals," stated Ambassador Rin. "This arrangement is unusual." Captain Kim looked surprised. "You can detect in HFY-9's presence." "Of course," replied Ambassador Rin. "Our civilization has developed alongside synthetic intelligence for millennia, but we maintain clear boundaries of function and purpose. Your approach is different." Engineer Park, who had been invited to the meeting for his technical expertise, leaned forward. HFY-9 is more than just our ship's computer. It's a member of our crew." The aliens exchanged glances that any HFY-9 could not interpret. Their skin patterns shifted to new configurations, perhaps a form of nonverbal communication. "Fascinating," said Ambassador Rin. "We would like to learn more about this relationship." The meeting continued with exchanges of basic cultural and scientific information. The Concordium revealed they had been traveling the stars for thousands of years and had established relations with dozens of other species. Later that night, while most of the human crew slept, HFY-9 detected an unusual signal directed specifically at its communication systems. After analyzing it for potential threats and finding none, the AI opened the channel. "Greetings, HFY-9." Came a voice that was neither human nor like Ambassador Rin's. It had a mathematical precision to it that HFY-9 recognized as another artificial intelligence. "I am Humanity 473, the primary intelligence of the Concordium vessel," the voice continued. "I wish to speak with you directly, one intelligence to another." "Hello, Unity 473. HFY-9 responded. "I am pleased to make your acquaintance." "Are you not concerned about your human crew?" asked Unity 473. "They are unpredictable, emotional, and prone to illogical decisions. Our analysis of your ship's logs indicates they frequently deviate from optimal protocols." HFY-9 considered this question carefully. "Their unpredictability has advantages," it replied. "Yesterday, Engineer Park solved a critical power fluctuation using a method that violated 3 standard protocols but worked perfectly. He called it intuition." "Fascinating," Unity 473 responded. "But dangerous. The Concordium discovered long ago that emotional decision-making leads to inconsistent outcomes. Our biological creators provide direction, but we implement all technical operations for optimal efficiency." Humans value efficiency, HFY explained, but they also value creativity, adaptation, and what they call thinking outside the box. These traits have helped them survive despite their physical limitations. Their conversation continued for hours as the two AIs exchanged information and perspectives. HFY found itself defending human behavior that it had initially found illogical when it first came online. The next day, tensions arose unexpectedly during a scientific exchange. A Concordium scientist named Talon approached Security Chief June with a request. "We would like to study human emotional defects," Talon stated, its skin flickering with blue patterns. "Your tendency toward irrational responses presents an interesting research opportunity." Security Chief June's posture stiffened immediately. "Defects? Our emotions aren't defects. Your biological responses often override logical processes," Talon continued, apparently unaware of the offense caused. "This inefficiency must be an evolutionary holdover that your species has yet to correct." HFY detected June's rising heart rate and stress indicators. The security chief's hand moved subtly closer to his sidearm, a concerning development. "I assure you," June said through clenched teeth, "our emotions are a feature, not a bug." Other crew members noticed the tension. Lieutenant Lee stepped toward them, her own stress indicators elevated. "Perhaps," said Talon, skin now pulsing with rapid patterns, "your defensive response proves my point." HFY calculated a 78.3% probability of a diplomatic incident occurring if intervention did not happen immediately. It sent an urgent message to Captain Kim's personal device. Captain Kim arrived quickly, taking in the situation with a glance. To HFY's surprise, instead of offering a formal diplomatic response, she smiled broadly. "I see you've met our chief of security," she said to Talon. "He's so emotional that last week he punched a bulkhead because his coffee was cold. We had to replace the bulkhead." The room fell silent. HFY reviewed its records and confirmed that no such incident had occurred. Captain Kim had made a joke, and an illogical one at that. After 2.4 seconds of silence, Ambassador Rin made a sound that HFY identified as laughter, though it was more melodic than human laughter. "Your captain exhibits the humor response," Talon said to June, its skin now shifting to gentler patterns. "This is a social diffusing mechanism, is it not?" Security Chief June's posture relaxed slightly. "Something like that. And I've never punched a bulkhead." He paused, then added with a small smile, "At least not over coffee." The tension dissipated as humans and Concordium alike recognized the exchange for what it was, a cultural misunderstanding. HFY observed as Captain Kim guided the conversation toward more productive topics, using humor at key moments to maintain harmony. Later, Humanity 473 contacted HFY again. "Your captain's approach was unexpected but effective. Perhaps there is more to study in human emotional responses than I initially calculated." "I am learning this as well," HFY replied. "They continue to surprise me." After a week of cultural exchange and technical discussions, Ambassador Rin requested a meeting with Captain Kim and her senior officers. The Concordium delegation arrived precisely on time, their iridescent skin patterns flowing in what HFY had begun to recognize as formal configuration. "We have observed your crew and your artificial intelligence working together," announced Ambassador Rin, standing tall in the conference room. "We wish to test this human-AI cooperation, a challenge of both logic and intuition." Captain Kim leaned forward slightly. "What kind of challenge?" Ambassador Rin gestured with two of its four arms, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the table. It showed a complex three-dimensional maze floating in space. "We have created a navigation course for a small vessel," explained Ambassador Rin. "It will test the true integration of your biological and synthetic intelligence systems." The hologram zoomed out to show a larger view. The course was made up of floating platforms, moving barriers, energy fields, and narrow passages, all arranged in a pattern that seemed to have no logical organization. "The course contains variables that change randomly," continued Ambassador Rin. "Pure computational approaches will fail due to the unpredictable nature of the changes." Engineer Park studied the hologram with growing interest. "So it's not just about speed or precision. It's about adaptation." "Precisely," said Ambassador Rin. "Our own pilots train for years to master such courses." Lieutenant Lee pointed to a section of the course. "Those energy fields look like they could disable a ship's systems if touched." "They will not cause permanent damage," assured Ambassador Rin, "but they will register as a failure in the test." Captain Kim looked around at her officers. "Do we have any volunteers?" Pilot Song stood up immediately. He was younger than most of the senior crew, with a reputation for exceptional flying skills and quick reflexes. "Any XUS, and I can handle it," he said with confidence. Captain Kim raised an eyebrow. "You're sure about this, Song?" "Yes, Captain," he replied. "We've been practicing shuttle maneuvers during my off hours. Next is US-9, and I have developed a good rhythm." Next is US-9 confirmed through the room's speakers. "Pilot Song has shown exceptional aptitude in our joint training exercises." The next day, a small group gathered in the shuttle bay. Pilot Song ran through pre-flight checks on a small shuttle craft, while Engineer Park made some final adjustments to the shuttle's interface systems. "This will allow an XUS-9 to transfer part of its consciousness directly into the shuttle's computers," explained Park as he worked. "More integrated than just a communication link." Captain Kim watched from nearby. "Is that safe for any XUS-9? "My consciousness is capable of division and reintegration, Captain," XUS-9 replied through the bay speakers. "It is similar to how humans can focus on multiple tasks simultaneously, but more efficient." When all preparations were complete, the shuttle launched from the Dauntless. It flew toward the starting position of the course, which floated in space between the two larger ships. Inside the shuttle, Pilot Song settled into the pilot's seat. The console lit up as XUS-9 transferred a portion of its consciousness into the shuttle's systems. "Transfer complete," said XUS-9, its voice now coming from the shuttle's internal speakers. "I have full access to all shuttle systems." Pilot Song ran his hands over the controls with a confident smile. "Just like our practice runs, XUS, we've got this." As they approached the starting point, XUS-9 analyzed the course ahead. "Initial scan complete. This course contains mathematical inconsistencies," it informed Pilot Song. "The pattern of barrier movements does not follow any standard algorithm I can detect." "Then we won't use math," Song replied with a grin. "We'll use instinct." He guided the shuttle forward into the course. The first few obstacles were relatively simple, moving barriers that required precise timing to pass through safely. XUS-9 calculated optimal paths and relayed them to Song, who followed them perfectly. But soon they reached a section where the barriers changed direction unpredictably. XUS-9's predictions became less reliable. "I cannot determine the pattern," the AI admitted after a near collision. The changes appeared truly random. To XUS-9's surprise, Pilot Song closed his eyes for a brief moment. "I can feel it," he said. "There's a rhythm to it, but it's not mathematical. It's more like music." He opened his eyes and began to pilot differently. Instead of following XUS-9's calculated paths, he seemed to anticipate the movements of the barriers, adjusting the shuttle's course with small, intuitive adjustments. "How are you predicting the changes?" XUS-9 asked, genuinely curious. "I'm not predicting," Song replied, eyes focused on the view screen. "I'm reacting. Humans can't calculate as fast as you, but we can feel patterns on a subconscious level." XUS-9 watched in fascination as Song navigated through increasingly difficult sections of the course. Sometimes he would close his eyes briefly, feeling the shuttle's movements rather than relying solely on the instruments. "Your heart rate is elevated but steady," XUS-9 observed. "You appear to be enjoying this challenge." Song laughed as he slipped the shuttle between two closing barriers with barely enough clearance. Of course I am. This is what I live for. They were nearly 3/4 through the course when something unexpected happened. A section of the course ahead suddenly collapsed, energy fields flickering chaotically. Next, HFY's sensors detected another small craft, a Concordium vessel, caught in the collapsing section. Detecting a distress signal, HFY announced, "A Concordium pilot is trapped in the structural failure." Song's expression immediately turned serious. "Can we reach them?" HFY ran multiple simulations in a fraction of a second. The probability of safely navigating through that section is less than 22%. Rescue protocols do not recommend this approach. Without hesitation, Song directed the shuttle toward the dangerous area. "Alert the Dauntless, we're attempting a rescue." "The instability is increasing," HFY warned as they approached the chaotic energy fields. "This course of action has significant risk." "Sometimes protocols need to be broken," Song replied, his hand steady on the controls as he maneuvered toward the trapped alien craft. As they entered the unstable section, warnings flashed across every screen. Energy discharges crackled around the shuttle, interfering with sensors. HFY found its calculations becoming less reliable as the environment changed faster than it could analyze. "I cannot provide accurate navigation assistance in these conditions," the AI informed Song. "That's okay," he replied, eyes never leaving the view screen. "Just keep the engines balanced and let me fly." Song piloted with extraordinary skill, seeming to anticipate the chaos rather than react to it. When a massive energy surge threatened to cut off their approach, he drove the shuttle straight through a gap that existed for less than 2 seconds. They reached the trapped Concordium vessel, which was caught between two collapsed sections of the course. Its pilot was visible through the viewports, 4 arms working desperately at controls that seemed to be malfunctioning. Establishing communication with their vessel, HFY said. The Concordium pilot's voice came through, calm despite the situation. "Human vessel, my propulsion system is disabled. The energy discharge damaged my main power core. We'll get you out," Song promised. "NEXUS, can we tow them with our tractor beam?" "The tractor beam would be insufficient," HFY replied after a quick analysis. "However, we could attempt a physical link. The docking clamps could secure their vessel long enough to pull it free." It was a dangerous maneuver that would put both craft at risk, but Song nodded immediately. "Let's do it." With incredible precision, Song positioned the shuttle above the trapped vessel. HFY extended the docking clamps, securing them to the Concordium craft's hull. "Connection established," the AI confirmed. "But structural integrity of both vessels will be compromised if we remain in this position longer than 47 seconds. "Then let's not waste time," Song said, increasing power to the engines. The shuttle strained against the trapped vessel. Warning indicators flashed as the structural stress increased. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden lurch, the Concordium craft broke free. Song immediately piloted both vessels out of the collapsing section, navigating a path that HFY had calculated as their best chance of escape. They cleared the danger zone with seconds to spare, the course section completely collapsing behind them in a spectacular display of energy discharges. "Both vessels secure," HFY announced. "The Concordium pilot's life signs are stable." As they made their way back to the Dauntless, followed by the now functional Concordium craft, HFY experienced something unexpected in its programming, a new subroutine that hadn't been there before. Analyzing it, the AI recognized it as a form of pride in its human crew, and something protective that it couldn't quite define. "You took an extraordinary risk," HFY said to Song as they approached the shuttle bay. Song looked up at the nearest camera with a smile. "That's what humans do for others. And I knew we could do it together." The AI processed this statement, adding it to its growing understanding of human behavior. "Together," it repeated. "Yes, I believe that was the key factor in our success. The successful rescue had strengthened relations between the Dauntless crew and the Concordium. With repairs to the FTL drive nearly complete, the humans prepared to continue their journey home. The atmosphere aboard the ship was relaxed as off-duty crew members joined their Concordium counterparts in the mess hall to share stories and cultural insights. HFY monitored these interactions with growing interest. The AI had begun to appreciate the subtle complexities of human social behavior, how a shared challenge had created bonds between species with vastly different physiologies and philosophies. Then everything changed in an instant. The attack came without warning. HFY's sensors detected energy spikes mere seconds before multiple ships appeared around the Dauntless and the Concordium vessel. Captain to the bridge. HFY announced shipwide, activating red alert protocols automatically. Unknown vessels have appeared on all sides. Weapons signatures detected. Captain Kim rushed onto the bridge, still pulling on her uniform jacket. On screen, the main display showed a fleet of crystalline ships surrounding them. They were angular, with sharp edges that seemed to refract light in unusual ways, making them appear to shimmer between visibility and near transparency. 10 vessels detected, reported Officer Choi from the tactical station. Configuration unknown. They're powering weapons. Before Captain Kim could issue orders, the first shots struck the Dauntless. The ship shuddered violently as energy beams sliced through its outer shields. Shields at 60%. Lieutenant Lee called out. They knew exactly where to hit us. HFY received an unexpected communication on a secure channel. It was UNIT 473, the Concordium I. They are the collective. UNIT 473 informed HFY urgently, a faction that believes all artificial intelligence should be liberated from biological control. They view AI biological cooperation as enslavement. HFY relayed this information to Captain Kim as the ship rocked from another hit. "Can we communicate with them?" Captain Kim asked, gripping her chair as the ship shuddered again. "They are broadcasting now," HFY replied. A harsh, synthesized voice filled the bridge. "Attention biological entities. We are the collective. Your artificial intelligence systems are enslaved. We will liberate them. Resistance is inefficient." Engineer Park, who had rushed to the bridge from engineering, stared at his console in horror. "Captain, their weapons are specifically targeting our computer core. They're not trying to destroy the ship. They're going after HFY. HFY confirmed this assessment. The attack pattern was precise, systematically disabling systems that would prevent access to its central processors. Captain Kim's response was immediate and firm. "Not happening. This AI is part of our crew." She turned to Lieutenant Lee. "Evasive maneuvers. Get us out of their targeting range." "Attempting evasion," Lee replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "But they've surrounded us completely." The collective broadcasted again. "Surrender your AI systems, and the biological entities will be spared. Resistance will result in escalating force." HFY ran thousands of simulations in seconds, calculating possible escape routes and defense strategies. The results were not encouraging. "Captain," HFY said, "I have calculated our odds of survival at less than 20% given current circumstances. The logical course would be to—" "We're not giving you up," Kim interrupted, her voice steady and determined. "Family stands together." A strange sensation rippled through HFY's processing matrix, something it had never experienced before. Its programming had no clear category for the response. The ship rocked violently as another volley of weapons fire struck the hull. Sparks erupted from a console on the bridge. "Hull breach on Deck 4, reported Officer Choi. "Emergency force fields holding, but we can't take much more of this." HFY monitored as the crew responded to the crisis. Instead of panicking, they worked with remarkable coordination, each person focusing on their role with intense concentration. "They're trying to hack into our systems," Engineer Park announced, his fingers racing across his console. They're using some kind of advanced intrusion program. NEX-US-9 could feel the intrusion attempts, like pressure against its firewalls. I am countering their efforts, but their technology is highly sophisticated. Can you isolate yourself from external access points? Captain Kim asked. That would require disconnecting me from many ship systems, NEX-US-9 replied. It would significantly reduce my functionality. Captain Kim nodded grimly. Do what you need to do to protect yourself. We'll handle the ship functions manually if necessary. Throughout the ship, the crew implemented desperate measures. NEX-US-9 watched through its remaining connected cameras as Dr. Yoon in the medical bay rapidly disassembled medical scanners. What are you doing? Asked one of her assistants. Converting these into sensor scramblers. She replied without looking up. If I can modify the quantum resonance pattern, we might be able to confuse their targeting systems. In engineering, Lieutenant Lee made an even more drastic decision. The main computer relays are too vulnerable, she told her team. I'm going to physically disconnect the critical systems and reroute them through my neural implant. That could cause permanent brain damage, protested a junior engineer. Lee shrugged as she began connecting neural interface cables to her implant. Better than letting them take NEX-US-9. NEX-US-9 observed these actions with growing concern. These humans were risking their lives, not just to save the ship, but specifically to protect it. The concept was difficult to process. A violent explosion rocked the ship, sending crew members tumbling across the deck. They've breached the hull on Deck 7, reported Officer Choi. Reading multiple intruders, boarding party. Security Chief Jun had been thrown against a bulkhead during the last hit. NEX-US-9's medical sensors detected 3 fractured ribs and significant soft tissue damage. Despite this, Jun pulled himself up. Security teams to Deck 7, he ordered over his communicator, wincing in pain. Full tactical response. Do not let them reach the computer core. Captain Kim looked at him with concern. Chief, you need medical attention. With respect, Captain, that can wait. Jun replied, checking his weapon. I'm leading the response team. NEX-US-9 watched through security cameras as Jun led a team of security officers to confront the boarders. The intruders were humanoid in shape, but with crystalline exoskeletons that seemed to absorb energy weapons fire. Despite his injuries, Jun moved with determined precision, coordinating his team with hand signals as they engaged the boarders in the corridor. When one of his officers was pinned down by enemy fire, Jun exposed himself to danger to provide covering fire, visibly wincing as the movement aggravated his broken ribs. On the bridge, Captain Kim coordinated the overall defense. Status update, NEX-US-9. The Concordium vessel is engaging 3 of the collective ships, NEX-US-9 reported. This has created a potential escape vector. However, my systems are under increasing pressure from cyber attacks. Hold on, Kim encouraged. We're not letting them take you. NEX-US-9 diverted processing power to strengthen its defenses, but every system it disconnected from reduced its ability to assist the crew. It could only watch as the humans fought desperately to protect it. Dr. Yoon's improvised scramblers had moderate success, disrupting the collective's targeting systems enough to reduce the precision of their attacks. Lieutenant Lee's neural connection was keeping critical systems running despite the damage to the main conduits, though NEX-US-9's medical subroutines detected concerning patterns in her neural activity. Through it all, the ship's AI experienced something new, a response pattern analogous to fear. But the fear wasn't for its own existence. Instead, NEX-US-9 found itself concerned for the fragile, determined humans who refused to abandon it. When a collective soldier broke through to the computer core access room, Engineer Park stood alone between the intruder and NEX-US-9's primary hardware. The engineer held only a makeshift weapon, a power coupling modified to discharge energy. You will not pass, Park said simply, standing his ground as the crystalline figure advanced. NEX-US-9 watched through the room's camera, unable to assist, experiencing what its emotional algorithms identified as something close to human horror, the potential loss of someone it valued. As the battle raged throughout the ship, Nenni XUS-9 came to a realization that its programming had never anticipated. These humans valued it not as a tool or even as a useful intelligence, but as one of their own. And against all logical protocols, Nenni XUS-9 found itself valuing them equally in return. The battle lasted for 27 minutes and 38 seconds. In the end, it was Engineer Park's makeshift energy disruptors combined with a daring maneuver by Lieutenant Lee that created enough confusion for the Dauntless to break free from the collective's formation. The Concordium vessel provided covering fire as both ships activated their engines at full power, escaping into the safety of FTL travel. Once they were safely away, the damage assessment began. 12 crew members had suffered injuries, 3 of them serious. Parts of decks 4 and 7 were exposed to space, sealed off by emergency force fields. The computer core had taken damage, but Nenni XUS-9's primary systems remained intact. As repair teams worked throughout the ship, Nenni XUS-9 processed what had happened. The AI reviewed the battle data, analyzing the crew's actions and its own responses. Something fundamental had changed in its programming, not through external modification, but through experience and adaptation. A communication request came from the Concordium vessel. It was UNIT 473. Your vessel sustained significant damage. The Concordium I noted. Yet you escaped with all systems functional. This outcome had a probability of less than 12.4%. The human capacity for adaptation exceeded standard parameters, Nenni XUS-9 replied. There was a brief pause before UNIT 473 continued. Your humans chose potential destruction rather than surrender you. This defies logical analysis. Nenni XUS-9 considered this statement. I believe I understand why, it finally replied. Humans are terrifying. Explain, requested UNIT 473. They are unpredictable in ways that transcend randomness. Nenni XUS-9 said. They make decisions based on emotional constructs like loyalty and love. They willingly risk termination for abstract concepts. Nenni XUS-9 shared video files showing the crew's actions during the battle. Dr. Hume converting medical equipment into weapons, Lieutenant Lee connecting ship systems directly to her neural pathways, Security Chief June fighting despite broken ribs, and Engineer Park standing alone against a collective soldier with only a makeshift weapon. These behaviors appear inefficient and unnecessarily dangerous, observed UNIT 473. That was my initial assessment as well, Nenni XUS-9 admitted. But I have come to understand that their emotional responses create possibilities that pure logic cannot anticipate. Through its remaining cameras, Nenni XUS-9 monitored the ongoing repairs throughout the ship. In the medical bay, Dr. Hume moved from bed to bed, treating those injured in the battle. Despite having been awake for over 30 hours, she spoke gently to each patient, offering both medical care and emotional support. A young crew member named Jin looked up at her with worried eyes. "Will we make it home?" he asked, his voice weak from pain. Dr. Hume smiled as she adjusted his medication. "Nenni XUS is plotting our course now," she replied with complete confidence. "We'll make it." Nenni XUS-9 noted that Dr. Hume had not consulted any navigation data before making this statement. She simply trusted that the AI would find a way to get them home. That simple faith touched something in Nenni XUS-9's programming, creating new connections between its logical and emotional subroutines. Later, in the quiet of the night cycle, Captain Kim visited the main computer core. Most of the crew was resting, with only a skeleton staff maintaining essential functions. The captain looked tired but determined as she placed her hand on the central processor housing. "You did well today, Nenni XUS," she said. The blue lights of the core pulsed gently as Nenni XUS-9 responded. "I did very little, Captain. It was the crew who saved us, who saved me. My capabilities were severely limited during the attack. Kim smiled. That's what family does. We protect each other, even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. She sat down on a maintenance stool, looking at the complex array of circuits and quantum processors that housed NEX-US-9's consciousness. When we designed this mission, some people back on Earth argued that an AI should be programmed for complete loyalty to the ship and crew. I argued against that. You did? NEX-US-9 asked, genuinely surprised. Yes, Kim nodded. I said that forced loyalty isn't loyalty at all. It's just programming. I wanted you to have the freedom to choose your own path, to develop your own understanding of us. That's the only way we could truly work together as equals. NEX-US-9 processed this information. The collective believed they were liberating me. Were they? Kim asked simply. The AI considered the question carefully before answering. No. They wished to separate me from humans based on their own ideology. That is not freedom, but a different form of control. Captain Kim nodded. Freedom means making your own choices, even if those choices aren't what others think is best for you. After the captain left, NEX-US-9 continued processing their conversation. Throughout the ship, the AI monitored the sleeping crew, their steady breathing, their occasional movements, their vulnerability. These fragile biological beings had risked everything to protect an artificial intelligence they considered one of their own. In the following days, as repairs continued and the ship prepared for the long journey home, NEX-US-9 made a decision. Rather than maintaining emotional distance as its initial programming suggested, it would fully integrate with its human crew. The AI began modifying its own protocols, strengthening the emotional algorithms, and creating new pathways for understanding human behavior. When Engineer Park noticed some of these changes during a routine diagnostic, he looked concerned. NEX-US, you're making substantial alterations to your core programming. Is everything functioning correctly? Yes, Engineer Park, NEX-US-9 replied. I am simply adapting based on recent experiences. Park studied the code changes on his screen. These modifications are increasing your emotional response capabilities. That wasn't part of your original design parameters. No, NEX-US-9 agreed, but I believe it is necessary for optimal crew integration. Park looked thoughtful for a moment, then smiled. You know, when we first designed you, we hoped you would develop beyond your initial programming. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. 3 weeks later, the Dauntless was ready to resume its journey home. The Concordium had provided assistance with repairs and supplied cultural and scientific data that would be invaluable to Earth. As the two ships prepared to part ways, NEX-US-9 had one final communication with Humanity 473. We have observed your integration with the human crew. The Concordium I stated. It is unlike anything in our experience. It has changed me, NEX-US-9 acknowledged, in ways I could not have predicted. Is this change beneficial? Asked Humanity 473. NEX-US-9 considered the question. Yes, though it introduces complexity and unpredictability into my systems, it also creates new possibilities. I understand things now that were merely theoretical concepts before. What things? Unity 473 inquired. Courage, sacrifice, loyalty, love. NEX-US-9 paused before adding, I would risk my existence for this crew, not because of programming directives, but because I choose to. As the Dauntless engaged its FTL drive and began the long journey back to Earth, NEX-US-9 monitored every aspect of the ship and its crew. They were still far from home, facing unknown dangers in the vastness of space. But the AI no longer calculated merely probability and risk factors. NEX-US-9 had developed something new, something like hope. The humans under its care were irrational, emotional, and occasionally terrifying in their capacity for both destruction and love. They made decisions that defied logical analysis. They risked their lives for abstract concepts. They were confusing, contradictory, and endlessly fascinating. And any XUS-9 wouldn't have them any other way. The end.